Hi. Hey everybody, what's happening? Oh shoot. Okay, hold on a minute. Something's missing. Number one, Donnie's not in the room and he's gonna be a complete and total ass about that until I bring him in. And two, I don't have the books in front of me. So hold that thought, y'all. I got it. All right, and I'm back. That was embarrassing. How y'all doing tonight? Um, it has been one of those days. Yeah. For real, for real. Let's see. I got a few of you all on. The pre-read, as you know, is now sort of an unannounced thing. It's one of those, if it happens, it happens. And if it doesn't, that's okay too. Um, because I like to kind of keep it loose until I am finished really developing what it is going to be. Hold up. Had to pull one of the stories off the printer for tonight. So there we go. Everybody let me know. How's the mic sounding? Camera looking okay. The stream quality should be a little bit better because we are now working through Ethernet direct as opposed to wireless. So there should be less lagging and less what I call megatroning. You know, when the sound gets all weird and it goes like, and that weird's just like with your cell phone sometimes when you get a bad signal. Yeah, I call that megatronic. So sorry, my neck is a little damp. I see StoryTime is here, so that means that some of our mod team is here. I see that Iowan is here. What's happening? It's good to have you. I see Erica Yolita. I see Mimi Brown. Read that book now. Read that book. Hey. Anyway, so yeah. It's good to see y'all. Fall is upon us, and with fall, I change my fragrances, right? So in the springtime and the summertime, I like to wear lighter scents. I like to wear YSL Pour Homme. I like to wear sometimes Clinique Happy because it's happy, it's bright and happy. I like to wear Prada, Luna, is it Luna Rosa? Yeah, and Cartier Sport. I like those. Those are like lighter scents that I rock in the summer. In the fall, I like to wear Dolce and Gabbana the One. I like to wear Spice Bomb, which is the lesser known older brother of the Lotus Flower Bomb that got so much fame when that song came out. And I'm saying all this to let you know, like right now, I have on Dolce and Gabbana the One. Because even though I don't really get out much, hold up, let me put the room scent on too. I got the room scent right here because I like this little stress relief for the room. That's aromatherapy. That's my eucalyptus and spearmint. Sometimes I have rosemary and sage and spearmint. Anyway, I do all of this because it's a part of getting in the mindset and the headspace. Look at that. Look at me being relevant to what's happening down here on the ticker. But it's a part of, now I'm going to sneeze because I sprayed too much of that. But it's a part of getting in the mindset and the space to do this, right? So, I get freshened up, make sure that I got on a couple of the bracelets that make me feel good. I wear a couple of the rings that make me feel good. I like to always start the show with glasses. It's a thing for me. I don't really rock my glasses much in the house, but I'll rock them here. And I make sure that I have on a cologne that I enjoy. And that's part of my pregame for this. It's funny because I say pregame. I don't really I don't watch sports ball Okay, it's like that. It's not a thing that I'm into, like any of the sports balls. Basket, foot, base, none of the sports balls. Soccer. I actually have an essential oil diffuser, Mimi Brown. I have 2, 3. But I like that spray. I like that specific concentrated spray. Now, with my essential oils, I got tinctures and tonics and things. I'm a mad scientist up in this piece when it comes to that. But I don't watch sports ball. Go figure. The guy with the essential oil diffuser doesn't like football? That's crazy. Is what it is. Reason why I don't like sports ball is because that's not really one of my gifts, right? Like, I don't have a particular gift for those athletics. Now, I do enjoy boxing. I do enjoy wrestling. There are other sports that I like, but I don't really get into the ball games. And part of that is because let me put it this way. I love debate. I love to watch debate. I love to watch politics when it's time for that. I, of course, love good literature. These are things that I am skilled at. And so when I see people perform those excellently, I know what it took to get there, right? I can understand what it took to get to that space. When they make a lovely turn of phrase, I'm, oh, I know you reached into your vocab deep for that one, and you used it with such aplomb. The execution was chef's kiss. You understand? Like, I can do that. I can see that. When someone makes a very salient point in a debate, when they rescue a point from an abysmal decline, and they're able to flip it with a clever metaphor that makes it so relatable that it becomes undeniable, that it becomes emotionally undeniable. Despite the fact that the logic might not track 100%, but the way it makes you feel wins over the crowd. That kind of use of persuasive language, yes, I can get behind that. I understand what it takes to get there. So I enjoy watching those performances. When it comes to most sports ball, the only part that I can enjoy is the part where the excellence is so undeniable. It's like, wow, that guy ran really fast, very far, holding that ball. That was good sports balling. Like, that's what I can appreciate. That's my level of engagement. And I can do that. That's for those reasons when I fucked with the NFL, I will watch the Super Bowl and be like, look at that guy. They threw that ball really far and he caught it from the air by jumping. I can understand that. Okay. It doesn't take a rocket surgeon to be able to understand certain levels of excellence. And so that's my level of engagement. Accordingly, I really, really enjoyed basketball in the 90s because Michael Jordan did not require a lot to appreciate. Certain levels of excellence in play were just excellence in play, and he was very demonstrative about the way he played. Like, there was a certain theater, a certain level of performance in his athletic performance that was undeniable. You were going to appreciate that. Like, I dare you to not. I mean, a lot of y'all hate Jordan now, and I understand that. But at the time, he was undeniable. And so to watch him in action didn't require a lot. I didn't have to get into his headspace. I didn't have to get into the space that he was in to understand how he was performing excellence. He was just performing excellence. And I could just appreciate that as a pure spectator, as someone with absolutely no real understanding of the game, of the technique. I didn't have to understand all of that. And so when I watched the documentary that the rest of y'all watched early this summer when y'all ran out of Netflix, The Last Dance, I learned so much about the psychology of this man. And good, bad, or indifferent, whatever you might feel about Michael Jordan as a person, he was a dominant force in the game. He literally changed the shape of the game, almost single-handedly changed the face of the NBA as a league, changed the level of interest that the nation had in that league. He made basketball globally popular in ways that it hadn't been. Like, sure, it was played in other countries, but he raised the bar, he raised the level of interest such that he dominated. I mean, there's no other way to put it. He dominated. And that fame could easily have swallowed him whole. And I'm sure it chipped away at a lot of his morality. I'm sure that as a person, he suffered some Because fame has that pernicious way about it of changing you, whether you intend for it to or not. And I cannot imagine that he was unchanged by fame. Where is Donnie? Hold on. Little boy. Oh, I see you. Okay, hi. He's not in his regular perch over to the other side of me, so I was a little concerned. But anyway, so I'm saying all that to say I never had to get into Michael Jordan's brain to see his excellence. And so it was never really a thought for me. I just thought that's what great basketball looks like. That's what happens when you're really, really talented and really good. And what I learned about the psychology of the man was that beyond the remarkable level of talent that he demonstrated regularly, there was a tremendous self-awareness and presence of mind. Not only was he self-aware, but he was aware of the people around him. He understood what motivated him, and he understood what motivated others, whether or not they liked it or whether or not it was their preferred method of motivation. He understood how to get the most out of the people around him. Apparently a lot of it was by being a complete asshole, but he's an asshole with 6 championship rings, so you got to argue that that worked. Now, there was one standout story for me. I know I'm getting to a point here. There was one standout story for me in this whole documentary. I think was 10 parts of it. All 10 parts of it. There was one story that stood out for me, and it was the story of how in one finals series, and I really wish I remembered better. I want to say that it was with the Indiana Pacers. And it wasn't Reggie Miller, it was someone else. Maybe it wasn't the Indiana Pacers, it might have been the Orlando Magic. But in one finals series, the Bulls got their butts beat in the first or second game. And one player who they had kind of underestimated really dominated in that particular game. And the legend has it that that player, who was a really likable guy, just kind of like Joe Basketball. Hey, everybody, like just likable bro. Like, you know, what are you gonna do? He's a good dude, plays good ball, whatever. The legend has it that he went up to Michael Jordan at the end of the game and said, "Hey, Mike, good game." Tried to shake his hand. Michael Jordan was like, "Fuck that noise," and walked off. Then the legend sort of grows and it morphs, and the story goes that he put his arm around Jordan, was like, "Hey, good game, Mike." And Michael Jordan was like, "Fuck off me," and went away because he wasn't here for any of all that. Still fuck that noise. And the next game, because this is Michael Jordan and you're not gonna fuck with him, the next game, Michael tore that man a new asshole on the court, just murderated him, just mopped up the fucking court with him. Just the hardwood was streaked with the remains and the viscera of this once talented young man. And that Jordan proceeded to do that throughout the rest of the series. Because how dare you talk to the greatest who ever did it that way and pretend that you, who had a lucky day, were really that person. And then come to find out, you know, rumor later had it that it never happened. That dude never said good game to Mike. He never shook his hand. He never put his arm around him. None of it happened. None of it. And Jordan confirms in the documentary, yeah, I made that up. And so I'm watching this, and half of me is like, wow. Like you, and everybody in the documentary, they talk about how Jordan had this way that he would do whatever it took to get into the headspace to dominate. So whatever he had to do to get there, whatever he had to do to get there, that's what he would do. And in this case, what he had to do was make up a story of a slight and an insult that made him so angry at that person for this imagined slight and insult that he would ruthlessly attack this person on the court. And part of me was like, wow, you really know what it takes to get into your headspace. That's amazing. Like, it's amazing to understand your own motivations. And then the other part of me was like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, what kind of person does that? Who who on earth makes up a whole imagined story of something that didn't happen just to completely grind out and defeat somebody who's trying to do their best? And as I was thinking that thought, other me said, "Oh, you mean like you do to us all the time?" I said, "Fuck you mean, other me? Fuck you mean like I do to us all the time?" And other me said, "I was going to submit that article to the Atlantic. I thought it was really good. I felt really proud of the work we had done. And then you made up this whole story about how it was garbage, and you imagined the editors passing it around and laughing at you and laughing at us for this work that we did, and you squashed it. You completely crushed my game." I ain't even happened. Yeah, no, that's kind of my point, is that didn't even happen, man. Like, I was really gonna submit that, and you just made up this story and completely crushed it. I mean, you acted like that was real. Shut the fuck up with me. You don't know what you're talking about. No, it's a thing you do, man. Like, remember that time that we were going to audition for that show at the KCA? Like, they were actually holding open auditions and we were going to go. And then you made up this whole thing about how you would get on stage and you would start sweating and it would be so embarrassing and they wouldn't have costumes in your size and you would be like so humiliated. And we didn't even audition, man. You had us being laughed off stage and we didn't even audition, bruh. Other me, you ain't got to be so fucking loud, man. I'm sitting right next to you. You ain't got to talk so loud at me. I'm just saying, you're really, really good at getting in the headspace to defeat me. Like, you've been using Jordan's tricks since way before you knew about Jordan. You've been doing this to us since we were 8. Remember when we didn't talk to that pretty girl at church? Because you told me she would say we were ugly. And you imagined us getting laughed at. And you made up this whole story about how she would go to school and tell her other friends about the ugly boy at church. And you didn't want that to happen. So we didn't even talk to her. She's married to a guy who looks just like us now. Have you seen her on Facebook? Yes, other me. You know I saw her on Facebook. We saw her at the same time. It was 2 a.m. We had to not like her picture because we didn't want to be creepy. I remember other me. Damn. This point that I want to make to you, this is me, Julian, talking. Julian of StoryTime with Julian, not other me. The point that I want to make to you is that you're really, really good at getting in the headspace to get the job done. You're very good at it. You're just getting in the headspace for the wrong job. You're excellent at getting in the headspace to do the work of defeating the wrong person. You have crafted these remarkable, amazing stories wherein you visualize powerfully, and you visualize something so powerful that it impacts you both physiologically and psychologically. You are a powerful being at creating a world. It's just, you're creating it the wrong way. You have a gift for getting in that headspace. My challenge to you, my hope for you, my desire for you is that you use that gift to get into the right headspace. The next story that you make up about what happens next, make it the one where you're undefeatable. Make up a brilliant story about how you dazzled the world, about how you were received with not just open arms, but open arms and open wallets. Write a story about how you are a fucking champion, and then walk around like your arms are weighted down by 6 rings. This has been the pre-read. Next up comes Storytime with Julian. We're going to take a little bit of a break, but thank you so much for being here. I appreciate y'all. Peace. Hey, what's happening? We are back with Storytime with Julian. I am the Julian in question, and it is 10 p.m., and therefore it is story time. I hope that all of you are ready. We, as I said in the promo, and I don't know how many of you got to see the promo, but I tried to explain. Over the last few weeks, we've gotten a little bit off schedule. I have prepared a number of reads with different authors, and I kind of had in mind a general flow and tone that I had hoped to achieve that would lead us to a place where by the beginning of October, I could start reading scary stories because, you know, it's October. And while it's not my favorite holiday, I know a lot of folk are really into, what do you call it? All Hallows Eve or some such, Halloween. And so the plan was to read a story that I haven't read, but that the Storytime staff had gone through by Victor D. Laval called Ghost Story. Now, the last time we read Victor D. Laval, it wasn't. It was chosen obviously because of the title, but the staff said, you know, it's cool. It's him. The last time we read Victor's work, there was some problems. It was a tough read for a lot of reasons. There was some profanity, some slurs, and it was really problematic for a lot of people. That is the nature of a lot of our literature, and so it's forced some necessary changes in the show. But at the same time, I don't believe in censoring the work, which was the whole disclaimer that you all read before this. Anyway, the works that I had planned to read up to that, whatever the content of Ghost Story would have been, would have put us in a good place for it, but we didn't read those. Last week, the last thing that you all heard from me was Thursday, where we read two of my favorite short stories of all time, The Library by Terri A. Meredith and The Ones Who Stay and Fight by N.K. Jemisin. And that was such an amazing episode for me. I loved sharing with you all, and it was just light, and the energy was so hype, and it was good. And my plan had been to read Erotique Noir on Tuesday because it was going to close out the month. And I was actually considering starting a series where at the end of every month, I read erotica. So everybody would know last Thursday of the month is Storytime After Dark. And, you know, you get your thing that you're sipping on, and you get your spouse or your special person next to you, or your pillow or Barney or whatever it is that you have that you like to hold on to, and you enjoy the erotic stories. I was thinking of considering that and making it a thing. I don't know that that will happen. We'll see how tonight goes. I saw that someone just asked, did I know that Walter Mosley's new book is a book of short stories? I do, and I'm trying to remember if I pre-ordered it. I know that I had talked to Rian about it, but I can't remember if I pre-ordered it or not because I wanted it in a hard copy. And anyhow, some of y'all have questions about Barney. Look. I don't know your life. I don't know what you're into. I like purple. No, I'm just playing. Please don't read into that. Ain't nothing going on with Barney. Lord help, y'all done already ran with it. Listen, let me stop. Tonight we are going to read some erotica. So here's the book, Erotique Noir. Now this collection, I'm gonna just go ahead and call it what it is. This is a classic, yo. Like, people have been buying and rebuying. I think this particular edition I'm holding in my hand is like the 9th printing or something. I had the first printing around the time I was in college, because this was like, hey girl, why don't you come up to my room and I'll read your story. Oh, college. Good times. Anyway, this book is a classic. Now, I've never actually read this book cover to cover. I've always only ever flipped open the book, found the story, read it, dug it, thought it was cool, or read a couple of the poems in it, thought it was cool, put it back on the shelf. I use this book as inspiration, actually, because I used to write erotica some time ago, long time ago. And I still actually edit erotica for other folks, which is why you're going to hear a piece tonight that's from an anthology that I edited that has never been published. So there's that. But the first story that we're going to read tonight is by Piri. It might be Thomas. I said Tomas because I know that Piri has gone on to join the ancestors, Afro-Latino. And so I assumed it was Tomas. I could be wrong. But this story by Piri Tomas, Nasty Delightful Things, is from a collection, one of his first works, I think, Down These Mean Streets. This is a story that I've read before. I have a certain affinity for it. It is, by a lot of today's standards, problematic in a lot of ways. But it's also a really interesting story of tension, class. For those of you all who live in New York or who have lived in New York, you're absolutely going to feel the New York of it. And I always have a thing for stories that make me feel New York because I miss it. I miss it all the time. And so we're going to start with Nasty Delightful Things. It is originally from Down These Mean Streets by Piri Thomas, and it is in the collection Erotique Noir. Let's begin. The train roared to a stop and all kinds of people pushed and shoved themselves into sameness. The door slid shut and the train jerked itself out of the station like it was sure of where it was going. I looked around. Everyone was in his own private world despite the close packing of bodies. I was squeezed in between a Chinaman and a soft broad. The Chinaman I ignored, but the chica was something else. Her ass was rocking to and fro from side to side. The friction against my stomach caused a reaction, and the reaction kept time with the motion and the roaring insanity of the train. I tried to think of other things like cowboy flicks, lemonade, and mind over matter. Get down, stiff joint, I commanded. This broad's liable to think I'm some kind of weirdo instead of a nice, normal Puerto Rican. I pushed back away from her. Sorry, I mumbled. Brew was reading the subway ad, so he couldn't see what was happening to me hung up between the Chinaman and the soft-ass broad. The train lurched and that soft pile of rump crashed hard against my innocent joint. Damn, she had to feel that, I thought ruefully. Hope this bitch don't start yelling up a storm. She didn't. She just turned and smiled expressively. It was a very damn liberal smile. She didn't move away, and I could feel my joint playing it cool between her thighs. She pressed hard against me and let herself roll with the train. Man, I did the same. The train roosh-shooshed to a stop at 42nd Street and the door slid open. Nobody got off. Instead, more people piled in, and the pressure of the added closeness pushed me into the corner of the train. The softness before me went the same way. Sorry, I said. It's all right, she said sweetly. Let me see if I can get my balance. I pushed back against the Chinaman, and he, in self-defense, pushed back against the enemy. I held the weight back long enough for the girl to shift her weight and turn to face me. She looked flushed, and then she smiled. We said nothing else. The great weight came back and pushed us close together again. I felt her breasts hard against me, and my joint burst in this wide vein between her thighs. Pressed together, we let ourselves roll in that hung-up closeness. I looked at her. Her eyes were closed. I made my hips dance a slow grind, and I let my hand think for itself and bite those liberal breasts. The whole motherfucking world was forgotten in the winging, singing scene of stress and strain, grind and grain on a subway train. We were roaring into the 14th Street station. Hurry, hurry, our bodies urged. And swoom, girl and me and the train got to the station at the same time. I felt her tremble and shiver as I boiled over. The train slowed down and we held on tight. I dug her face, her patty fair face. Her eyes were still closed and her teeth were biting into the corner of her lower lip. The train stopped and we opened, and the open door shitted people out, releasing the pressure. We were swept out onto the platform and separated by the going everywhere crowd. I reached out to touch her one more time, but the broken dam of people wasted the distance between us. I tried to see which way she was cutting out, but all I caught was a pin look-see of her looking back for someone. I thought of calling out her name, but I didn't know her name, and I couldn't just start yelling, "Here I am, Patty girl." She disappeared, and I heard a voice call, Piri? Hey, man, here I am. What you looking all over that way for? It was Brew. He chuckled and said, you looking for me, and here I am right behind you. Yeah, Brew, I said absently. Ain't that a kick? I felt kind of weak, like you feel when you've seen something glittering down the subway grating. You figure it's worth something, but you ain't got nothing to get a hold of it with, so you comfort yourself by saying, it was probably an old washer or something. And you never know whether or not it was for real. Brew threw a friendly punch. I ducked and threw a couple of dummy punches, and Brew came back with a flurry. We stopped before it got serious, slapped skin, and kept walking. Brew put his arm around the shoulder, and I put my arm around his. I wondered what was the name of the girl on the train. An hour and some 30 minutes later, I was turning up the walk to the house in my world. I whistled like always and heard Mama's voice. Want to eat before you wash? Mama said. Later, Moms. I want to take a shower first, I said. I undressed and got into the shower and let the water dig into me like shotgun BBs. My shorts were stiff and starchy from the great strain on my vein, so I soaped and rinsed them and tossed them into the wash bowl. The memory of that train ride stirred my joint again. I wondered if the broad was remembering how great it was, or if she was telling her friends how she met a horny Puerto Rican and let him climb up the side of the wall on the subway train just by diggling her white snatch against his black cock. I frowned. I thought black cock, and that meant the broad was probably saying nigga instead of Puerto Rican. I had a mental picture of all her friends hanging on to every word. You know, of course niggers got pricks 2 and 3 times as big as a white man. I'll tell you, girls, even through my dress, I felt like I had about half of it inside me. I shut my eyes to keep the soap out, and I saw her face clearly. Her eyes closed, and her teeth biting her lower lip. And when he grabbed my breast, I almost screamed, but I didn't want him to stop. Oh, I'd die if that were me, said one of the listening broads. I almost did, said my broad. I felt myself tremble all over, and that black boy pushing all the weight of his thing into me, and I felt my knees get weak, and I'm pretty sure he had an orgasm too because he sort of sagged against me. And what happened after that? The train stopped, and I got swept along with him. We were separated. I'm glad because I couldn't bear to have him say anything to me after I practically went to bed with him. Don't be foolish. That's not the same as when you're with your husband. I know, but regardless, it was with a colored boy. I just got away from there. I looked back once to see if he was following me, and I saw him looking over the heads of people like he was looking for someone. In that 1 second, I was never so ashamed of myself. Oh, you needn't feel that way. It's just one of those nasty, delightful things that one does in rare moments. You don't understand. I was ashamed because I wanted to fight my way back to him. I bent down and turned off the water tap, satisfied on the ending of my mental production of Beauty and Black's Beast. But inside me, I felt real hot and stinky and about this funny world and all the funny people in it. And thus endeth the story. For those of you all who were present during the pre-read, we talked about getting into that mind space and what it can be like when you write an entire story, an entire narrative in your head, and how that narrative can be either empowering or depowering. Here in this story, our protagonist, our young man, I'm trying to remember, Piri, he uses his real name. Piri writes a story to kind of help bring peace to what would otherwise be a possibly debilitating kind of situation. It's one thing to have the experience. It's another thing to have the aftermath of it. And yeah, there's a lot of we'll seek to complexify it. Piri takes some liberties in imagining how a woman who is entirely outside of his world and his experience might imagine or talk about his experience, but there it is. And I think for his purposes, him as a young teen or an older teen, uh, he writes it as though, I think he writes it as the way that he needs it for it to kind of come to a close for him, because it left him feeling, as he said, stinky and funky about this world that we live in. Anyhow, that was Nasty. Hold on, I want to make sure I say the title right. Nasty Delightful Things by Piri Thomas. Next up, we're going to read a story by Terri McMillan. Now, both of the, let's see, hold on, I want to make sure too that we put, oh, there it is. Yep, you can see in the links on the side the link to get to actually pick up Down These Mean Streets at Elizabeth's Bookshop and Writing Center. So check them out, give them a shot. Let me go ahead and switch up to the next one. The next story is Touching by Terri McMillan. I suspected someone was there in that very same spot before me, but I didn't let the thought grow in my mind or rot there till I saw her swinging on your side like a shoulder-strap purse early this morning. And this was after I had already let you touch me all over with your long brown hands and break down my resistance so that you left me feeling like the earth had been pulled from under my feet. First, I see your long, lean legs coming toward me on that crooked gray sidewalk, the silver specks glaring in my eyes like dancing stars. But I was not blinded, even when you dragged them in that elegant yet pompous kind of way of yours, and you watched me coming in from at least half a block away, and those size 13s didn't seem to lift off the cement as high as they did the other night when we walked down this very same street together. I know it was me who called you up the other night to say hello, but it was you who invited me to come down and walk your dog with you. Sounded innocent enough to me, but all along I'm sure you knew that I wanted to finally find out how warm it was under your shirt, behind your zipper, and if your hands were as gentle and strong as they looked. I was really hoping we could skip the walk altogether, because I just wanted to fall down on you slowly and get to your insides. Walk the dog another time. But since you've misconstrued my motives as being unladylike, I bounced on down the street to your apartment in my white jogging outfit, trying to look as alluring as I possibly could, but without looking too eager. I even dabbed gold oil behind my ears, under each breast and on the tips of my elbows, so as to lure you closer to me in case you couldn't make up your mind. The truth of the matter is that I was nervous because I knew we weren't going to just chit-chat tonight like we'd done before. I went out of my way in 5 minutes flat to brush my teeth twice, put on 4 coats of red lipstick, wash under my arms, Q-tip my ears and navel, because I didn't know just how far you might go, and wash my most intimate areas and sprinkle a little jasmine oil there too. Even though it was almost 90 degrees, we walked 15 blocks and the dog didn't let go of anything. You didn't seem to mind or notice. You handed me the leash, and even though I can't stand to see a grown man with a little cutesy-wootsy dog, I wasn't as hostile as I tugged at it as we continued to walk through the thick night air. For the most part, I like dogs. When our feet dropped from the curb and I jumped and screamed because a fallen leaf looked like a dead mouse, I let go of the leash and grabbed your hand. You squeezed it back, though you had to drag me to the tree's bark. Though you had to drag me to chase after your dog, who had taken off down the sidewalk, running up to the tree's bark and just panting. When we finally caught him, we were both out of breath. I regretted wearing that sweaty jogging suit. You scared of a little mouse? You asked. Yes, they give me the heebie-jeebies. My stomach turns over and I want to jump on top of chairs and stuff just to get away from them. Then you told me about the time you busted one on your kitchen counter eating your ravioli right out of the can, and how you wounded it with a broomstick and then tried to flush it down the toilet, but it wouldn't flush. I laughed loud and hard, but I wanted to make you laugh too. So I told you about the time I was on my way out of the house to take a sauna when I accidentally saw a giant roach cavorting on my kitchen counter. I whacked it with my right hand just hard enough to cripple it. I'm scared of mice, but I hate roaches. I didn't want it to die immediately because I had just spent $9.95 on some roach proof, which I had ordered through the newspapers, and I wanted to see if it really worked. So I sprinkled about a quarter teaspoon on his head, and as he was about to struggle to find a crack or crevice or somewhere, and he kept on trying, so I kept on sprinkling more proof on his antenna. After 5 minutes of this, he was getting on my nerves because I still had my coat on, my purse and gym bag thrown over my shoulders. And since my kitchen was designed strictly with dwarves and children in mind, I was burning up. It was then that I decided to burn him up too. First, I lit myself a cigarette, and with the same match, burned off his antenna, but the sucker still kept trying to get one corner of the counter. I got real mad because my proof was obviously not working, and I just went ahead and burnt him up quickly and totally for not dying the way he was supposed to. You thought this was terribly funny and cracked up. I liked hearing you laugh, but I didn't know if you thought this was indicative of my personality, torture and murder and everything. We continued to walk a few more blocks, making small talk, and this dog continued running up to tree trunks, kicking up his little white legs and finally squirting out wetness, but that was about it. By this time, I was sweating and picturing your head nestled between my breasts. I like feeling a man's head there, and it had been so long since any man had ever made me feel like dreaming out loud that I didn't even hear you when you asked me if I liked the Temptations and had I ever been to a puppet show. I didn't understand the connection until we walked inside your apartment. Today, though, you watched me come toward you like this was a tug of war, but the rope was invisible. The gravity was so dense that it pulled us face to face, and when I finally reached you, I could smell your breath at the end of the rope. You were uneasy and sort of turned in a half turn toward me as I brushed past both of you. You loosely smiled back at me, squinting behind those tinted glasses, and I smiled back at both of you because I don't have a grudge with this girl. It wasn't her I spent the night with. "What are you doing up so early?" you asked. I didn't really think it was any of your business since you didn't call last night to see how late I was up. Besides, it was almost 10 o'clock in the morning. I've already had my coffee, done my laundry, and now I'm trying to get to the plant store to buy some dirt so I can transplant my fern and rubber tree before the block party this afternoon. "Oh, I'm sorry. Marie, this is Carolyn," you said, waving your hands between us like a magician. We both nodded like ladies, fully understanding your uneasiness. "Why don't you have the Chinese people do your laundry?" "Why don't you have the Chinese people do your laundry?" you asked. "Because I like to know that my clothes are clean. I like to fold them up nice and neat like I want them. And besides, I like to put things together that belong together." You just nodded your head like a fool. For a moment, you looked puzzled, like someone had dropped you off in the middle of nowhere. You didn't seem to mind either that the girl was standing there watching your poise alter and sway. Me neither. But I had to move away from you because I could really smell your body scent now, and it was starting to stick to my skin, gravitating around me until it got all up into my nostrils and then hit my brain, swelled up my whole head right there on the spot. This was embarrassing, so I tried to play it off by pulling my scarlet scarf down closer toward my eyebrows. But you already knew what had happened. I make my feet move away from you as if I'm trying to catch a bus I see approaching. I take my hands and wipe away the burnt red lipstick from my mouth and cheeks at the mere thought of letting you press yours against them. Was trying to forget how handsome you were altogether. Fine. Too fine. Didn't listen to my mama. Never look at a man that's prettier than you because he's going to act that way. I was trying to think about dirt, the leaves of my plants, but I have never been attracted to pretty men, I thought, trying to miss the cracks in the sidewalk after stubbing my toe. You were different, spoke correct English, made puppets move and talk, wrote your own grant proposals, drank herbal tea, and didn't smoke cigarettes. You crossed your legs and arms when you talked and leaned your wide shoulders back in your chair so your behind slid to the edge, made me think you thought about the words before letting them roll off your tongue. I admired you for contemplating things before you made them happen. You yelled at me after I was almost halfway down the block. Are you selling anything at the block party? I had already told you the other day I was making zucchini cake, but I repeated it again. Zucchini cake! And waved goodbye, trying to keep that stupid grin off my face. Though I knew I wouldn't have been able to see my expression. You wouldn't have been able to see my expression from a distance. I liked the attention you were giving me in spite of the girl. I thought it meant something. I was even hoping, as I trucked into the plant store and got stuck by a cactus, that you would call me later on to explain that she was just a friend of your cousin or your sister. I was hoping that you would tell me that your back hurt or something, so I could come down with my almond oil and rub it for you. Beat it. Dig my fingertips into your shoulder blades and the canals along your spine until you gave in. Or maybe you would tell me you broke your glasses and couldn't see. I would come down and read out loud to you, comic books or the Bible. Now I'm out here on this sidewalk with a bag of black dirt in my hands in the heat, walking past your house, forcing myself not to stare up at those dingy white shutters of yours, so I twist my neck in the opposite direction, looking ridiculous and completely conspicuous. I thought for sure I was going to be your one and only down the street sweetheart, because I carried myself like a lady, not some dog in heat. I really had no intention of transplanting anything today. I just told you that because it sounded clean. I was more concerned about whether this girl touched you last night the way I had. Probably not, because only I can touch you the way I touch you. But as you were standing there on that sidewalk, I kept seeing still shots of us flashing across my eyes, twisting inside each other's arms like worms and caterpillars, you kissing me like you'd been getting paid for it all these years, and this was your last paycheck, and my head getting lost all over your body. I could still hear your faint cries echoing in my head, right there on the concrete. Saw my tongue moistening your chest and your hands rubbing all across and around my back like I was made of silk. I was silk and you knew it. You smelled so damn good. And you never stopped me when my head fell off the bed. You came after it. You never said anything when I screamed and called out your name. You took your time with me and kept pulling me inside your arms, inside the cave of your chest, and would not let me go. And when I woke up, you were the dream I thought I had. And yet, you were out there on that sidewalk in heat with another girl chained to your arm, walking past my house without a care in the world. This shit burns me up. I mean, look, you didn't have to make me laugh out loud, tickle me, and change the Band-Aid on my cut thumb, or sniff my hair and tell me it smelled like a cool forest. You didn't have to tell me that it didn't matter that my breasts were small, and I was relieved to hear that because my mama always told me that a man should be more interested in how you feel his life and not how you fill your bra. I mean, who told you to show me the puppets you'd made of James Brown and Diana Ross and the Jackson 5? Who told you to burn jasmine candles and make me listen to 12 Old Temptations albums after telling me your favorite of all time was Ain't Too Proud to Beg? You didn't have to climb up on a bar stool and drag out your scrapbook and give me the privilege of seeing 4 generations of your family, showing me your picture as a nappy-headed boy. What made you think I wanted to see you as a child when I'd really only known you as a man for 3 weeks? But no. You watched me turn my key in front of my door for 2 whole months while you walked that little mutt before you allowed yourself to say more than hello and good morning. I never did get around to explaining myself, did I? I mean, I think I told you I was a special education teacher. I told you that once in a while I write poems. Even wrote one for you, but I'm glad I didn't give it to you. Your ego probably would have popped out of your chest. But maybe I should have told you about the nights when my head pumps blood and about the dreams I have of being loved just so. How I have always wanted to give a man more than symphony inside and outside of the bedroom. But it's so hard. Look at this. You just should not have wrapped your arms and shoulders around me like I was your firstborn child. You should not have shown me tenderness and passion. Was this just lust? I mean, I wasn't asleep when you kept on touching and rubbing my face like I was crystal and you were afraid I would break. I pretended because I didn't want you to rupture this cocoon I was inside of, so I just let you touch. Never wanted you to stop touching me. 3 hours ago, I transplanted my plant anyway. I baked 3 zucchini cakes that almost cost me $30. But after this morning, I cannot picture myself sitting out on those cement steps in the heat trying to sell a piece of cake to total strangers. My roommate said she didn't mind, and I'm not going to sit in this hothouse all day and be miserable. Want to meet me for brunch? I ask a girlfriend. She has no money. I'll pay. Just meet me, girl, okay? She understands that I'm not really hungry, but will eat anything just to take up inside space and get me away from this street. The block was starting to fill up with makeshift vendors, displaying junk they've pulled out of attics and closets and basements so they wouldn't have to drag them to the Salvation Army. I could already smell barbecue and popcorn and hear the DJ testing his speakers for the highest quality of sound that he could expect to get from outside. It was very hot, and the sun was beating down on the pavement, making the heat penetrate through your shoes. I'm wearing my tightest blue jeans and think I look especially good this afternoon on my way to the train station. I work hard to look good, not for you or the general public, but for me. Here you come again, strutting toward me with that sissy little dog tagging alongside your big feet. But this time there's nothing on your arm but the soft black hair and a rolled up red plaid shirt sleeve. I can see orchards of black hair peeking out at me from your chest. And though my knees want to buckle, I dig my heels deeply into the leather so as to make myself stand up straight like a dancer. You smile at me before we meet, face to face, and then do one of your about-face turns. Start walking beside me without even being invited. Hello, I say, as I make sure I don't lose the pace of my stride I've worked so hard on establishing when I first noticed you. My goodness, you do look pretty today. Pink and purple are definitely your colors. I smile because I know I look good, and even though I can hardly breathe from holding my stomach in to look its absolute flattest, I don't want you staring at anything on my body too tough, because you've seen far too much of it already. I take that back. I want you to be mesmerized by this sight so that you remember what everything looked and felt like again, daytime or nighttime. I move closer to the curb. Where are you going today? You ask, showing some real interest. And since I want you to think I'm a very busy woman and that this little episode has not fazed me in the least, I say, I'm having brunch with a friend. I really wanted to tell you it wasn't any of your damn business, but no, I'm not only polite, but honest. We walked 6 hard, hot blocks. And when we finally reached the subway steps, you bent down like you were about to kiss me, and I stared at your smooth brown lips puckering up as if you had a cold sore on them and turned my head. You kissed that girl this morning. Can I call you later then? You asked. If the spirit moves you, I said, and disappeared underground. By the time I got home, it was almost 10 o'clock, and the street was still full of teenagers roller skating, skateboarding, and dancing to the loud disco music blasting from both ends of the block. Kids were running around and through a full-spraying fire hydrant in high shrills of excitement, while grown-ups sat on the stoops sipping beers and drinks from styrofoam cups. My roommate was sitting on our stoop, and I joined her. Though it was hard to see, I found myself looking for your tall body over all the smaller ones. When I didn't see you immediately, this disturbed me, because I could see your lights on and I knew you shouldn't be sitting up in that muggy apartment with all this noise and activity going on down here. When I saw you leaning against a wrought iron fence across the street, there was a different girl stuck deep into your side. You spotted me through a thick crowd of teenagers, and I heard you call out my name, but I ignored you. I was too proud to let myself feel sad or jealous or anything stupid like that. My roommate told me she sold exactly 3 pieces of my zucchini cake because folks were afraid to buy it. thought it might be green inside. I didn't care about the loss. I felt spry and spunky, so I kicked off my pink pumps and marched down the steps and walked straight into the fanning water of the fire hydrant along with the kids. The hard mist felt cool and soothing as it fell against my skin. My entire body was tingling as if I had just had a massage. And even though I could feel your eyes following me, I didn't turn to acknowledge them. I sat back down on the steps, wiped the water from my forehead, the hot pink lipstick from my lips, ate a piece of my delicious zucchini cake, and popped the lid on an ice-cold beer. The foam flowed over the top of the bottle and down my fingers. I shook off the excess and leaned back against the cement steps so it would scratch my back when I rocked from side to side and popped my fingers to the beat. And thus endeth the story. That was Terri McMillan bringing us Touching. Touching is actually an excerpt from a larger piece. It is actually, no, I'm sorry. Touching is not. Touching is directly a short story, and it's included in this collection, Erotique Noir. This is the last story for tonight from Erotique Noir. Let me check the time real quick. No, it's it's far from our last story of the night. So either, based on the timing, either we are going to have a bonus story, or we're going to have a lot of discussion. Let me go ahead and let's talk about this one a little bit. So we're talking about Touching by Terri McMillan. What are some of y'all's favorite lines? Let me go back and check the comments real quick. I heard a lot of on this side of my head, which is the side that the comments are on. So let's see. Ooh, y'all had a lot to say. Hold up. Let me go back and see what y'all talking about here. Let's see. For the most part, I like dogs. Okay, so I was going to ask about fave lines. Kelly James caught that one. For the most part, I like dogs. And I definitely think that was a little bit of a tell. I think she was working us. Saniqua picked out like dreaming out loud. That was one of the lines that got to her. So I get it. What is Issa Marie talking about? She said, I get the urgency. It's how much she did. A whole bath, brushing 2 times, belly button checking, perfume on the Nana too. Listen, I don't know your world. So if y'all tell me this is how it goes down, I believe you. This is how it goes down. This is an interesting thought. Saniqua says that sometimes Terri McMillan stories read like Jill Scott songs for her. Anybody else feel that way? I kind of, oh, well, Issa Marie does. Issa Marie says, this is my first story with her, and I agree. Okay, so somebody else feels that way. Talk to me a little bit about that, though. Talk to me about how these land for you. There was definitely a certain song-like rhythm in this, and I could hear, now that I think about it, I can hear that sort of narrative way that Jill Scott sings, the way she tells a story that's, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to fuck around and do a busted Jill Scott impression, but y'all get where I'm coming from. Let's see. I don't know what that's about, so let me skip that one. Let's see. This doing the most. Yeah, a lot of that. But the part that bothered Kelly James was that's too much money to spend on. And to be clear, it cost her $30 to make 3 zucchini cakes. So it was $10 per cake. It was $10 per cake. Oh, okay. Issa Marie said it wasn't what she did. It was that she took 5 minutes, that it took 5 minutes to knock those things out. That all of that took 5 minutes. Saniqua says about the story that it's the descriptions and the feelings that make it feel Jill Scottish. I get it. That's the one. I knew there was a specific, yes, it actually feels like that story. I'm not gonna front. And I might be telling tales out of school on myself, but this story had me kind of fucked up because I'm like, this nigga got a little she dog that's clearly white. He makes puppets. Um, what else? Pink and purple are his favorite colors. I'm sitting here looking at my logo like, I'm like, what in the hells is going on? Like, did I read this story years ago and absorb that shit and say, I'm going to become this Negro? Like, there was some other parts in there that I was like, this don't make, I don't like this. This feels like at me, Terri McMillan. Don't talk about me this way. There was something else that felt real personal. And then the motherfucker was real tall. And I was like, oh, that's not me. I'm not. He's tall and lean. That's not who I am. That is a fictional character and not me. Well, thank you, Saniqua. I appreciate you for real, for real. Let's move on to the next story. Terri must listen, Erica Yolita. I'm gonna need you to just rein it in a little bit. Rein it in a little bit. All right, y'all. Let's move on to the next story. I'm gonna go ahead and switch up the banners a little bit. I'm still getting used to this part of it. I like having these, but it's a lot. But we're going to switch to this final story, which is one that I had a hand in. I had a hand in it, but this is a story written by well, it's a long story. The story itself is not long, but the story of how I come into possession of it is long. The story is called The Heat of Dancing in August, and it was intended for an anthology that never got published, a collection of works between a couple of writers in a writers group that I was in some years ago. And it hasn't happened yet, but who knows? We'll see. The Heat of Dancing in August, written by Chrome for Cheyenne Bloom. Hold on, let me bring up y'all's comments so I can see what y'all doing. All right, let's go. Cheyenne is talking like she's not 10 minutes off from trying to fuck me right now. When we were, what would you call it? Not dating. She'd say involved, but I don't like to think of us that way. That word bothers me because it feels like a euphemistic communication of something complex and agitating. Like, this is so involved. Bitch, no, it's difficult. It's a pain in the ass. Cheyenne herself is both euphemistic and difficult. And like the sharp tack she's always dressed as, she is a pain in the ass. Fastidious is a better word. And when we were whatever we were, she'd always stay vigilant over how things appeared and never let anything look unrefined or unplanned. She stays in constant fuss over minutia and makes her choices by trying to forecast what others will think. In life and in writing, she dresses things up to make them more appealing, while I boil them down to bring out the flavor. Neither of us is content to simply speak or just write. To hear her tell it, when I serve up a sentence, I make words like erudition and fuck slut come together like pork belly and chanterelle risotto, far more flavorful than it should be and stickier than you were expecting. But she makes fucking bouquets out of basic nouns, hiding the occasional glorified weed among well-selected and perfectly placed bursts of unbelievably colorful language. She knows how to use August as an adverb, and filling out the whole thing with lists of repetitive but useful adjectives. It's all beautiful trash, like baby's breath, but you cannot unhear the softness. Pause. Speaking of unhearing, I hear some distress in the other room, and my first job calls to me, so I will return momentarily. And my mic was muted. Now it's on. Okay. My apologies all, but when my first job calls, I go. And my first job called. But everything is okay for those of you all who know Mama and are concerned. She's fine. Let me check the time real quick. All right. And you know what? Based on the time, y'all are saying you can't hear. Some are saying the volume is off. The volume is the same. Okay, based on the time, I think it makes more sense. I got to get back into the rhythm of the story, and we're really not that far in. So I'm going to start from the top and just let it rock. Give me a minute to get my mind in that headspace, right? Diane is talking like she's not 10 minutes off from trying to fuck me right now. When we were, what would you call it? Not dating. She'd say involved, but I don't like to think of us that way. That word bothers me because it feels like a euphemistic communication of something complex and agitating, like, this is so involved. Bitch, no, it's difficult. It's a pain in the ass. Diane herself is both euphemistic and difficult. And like the sharp tack she is always dressed as, she is a pain in the ass. Fastidious is a better word. And when we were, whatever we were, she'd always stay vigilant over how things appeared and never let anything look unrefined or unplanned. She stays in constant fuss over minutia and makes her choices by trying to forecast what others will think. In life and in writing, she dresses things up to make them more appealing while I boil them down to bring out the flavor. Neither of us is content to simply speak or just write. To hear her tell it when I serve up a sentence, I make words like erudition and fuck slut come together like a pork belly and chanterelle risotto, far more flavorful than it should be and stickier than you were expecting. But she makes fucking bouquets out of basic nouns, hiding the occasional glorified weed among well-selected and perfectly placed burst of unbelievably colorful language. She knows how to use August as an adverb, and filling out the whole thing with lists of repetitive but useful adjectives. It's all beautiful trash, like baby's breath, but you cannot unhear the softness. She's speaking with baby's breath now, telling me some sordid story wrapped in tissue paper and puffy, fragrant words, spoken in a soft, cool lilt about the new nigga she's fucking, or had been fucking. I can't recall which right now because her words are twisting and turning and warping themselves around my mind like spider vines climbing along plantation walls, and I'm waiting for her to get to the part where she says what she really means. Something about him makes me want to please him, give him everything. He gives me nothing, no sign or reaction. His eyes are still and quiet. They won't speak. Once again, she dances naked in the secret garden of language, leaving it to me to do the work of spreading apart the bushes that conceal her so that I can look inside. She pisses me off when she does this, talking in couplets and purple prose. Diane acts like I don't know her, like I can't see through all these words and hear what she's really saying. She hides the rank lust and funk of her stories in this extra soft language and makes you listen, holding your breath, waiting for the bass to drop in your belly, waiting for permission to go to where you know she's already taking you. But she takes the scenic route and makes you appreciate the surroundings. I don't even want to go here. I don't want to hear about her fucking this nigga. But I cannot escape her garden. I kneeled in front of him in something like supplication. He draws that out of me. He's so still, stoic. He stands like a pillar, and I slide my body around and over him, exalting the sheer luxury of his skin and celebrating every muscle it sheathes. He's barely breathing when I glide my fingertips down his thighs and I slide down. Something about his body awakens a celebration of my own. I feel every twitch of my muscles and every crackle of each nerve as it sparks to life, a static shock from being too close to something like metal in the presence of friction. Friction that I want, that I need to feel between us. I crave the friction of his movement, but I ache in the power of his stillness. I am bare and bowed before him, and my arms ivy climbing the stone wall of his form until my fingertips glance across the growing swell of his emergent sex. It's surprisingly low on his body, and my body almost recedes at the threat of that much power. But I cannot resist him and his stillness. He breathed just a little heavier when my finger scraped along the tip, and I want more. I want to hear air move inside stone and watch hard wood swell. His skin is so smooth that his slacks whisper as they fall off him, and finally he's as naked as me. He stands in skin the color of pralines, and I do not resist the urge to lick him. I grab him by the mannish root and pop it in my mouth, and moan with the same satisfaction that follows the first bite of tiramisu or red velvet cake. You know, we don't like to admit it, but lust tastes delicious. His skin probably tasted more of salt and cedar, but in my mouth, in that moment on my knees in my lust, he was dessert, and I was satisfied. My body acts of her own accord, and I happy dance. Dessert has come, and I'm going to eat it all. I'm not ashamed. My shoulders roll back, and my neck winds, and my hips shimmy, and my mouth dances along the length and width of him. I drop my hands to my sides so they can climb up him again, this time sliding up his calves, caressing the backs of his thighs, which I feel trembling, the pulsing blood ripping through the taut muscles. This man is unreal. And I need him to make a sound to prove to me he's not a statue, because I promise you, someone's God carved him and set him here as a temple. I call to him with his manhood in my throat, and moans the refrain of the hymn of satisfaction my body sang when she first tasted him. I feel his blood coursing and his breathing becomes slightly more audible, and when I pull him from my throat to whisper, "Come on, baby," he groaned loud, gripped the back of my head, and shoved himself back in my mouth. Baby, when I tell you, his touch ripped out my flower to the roots. He left me falling in the hole I dug. I couldn't hold still. I steadied myself in my hands around his glands and took his enough. Balls, I huff. Dick and balls. Nobody actually says glands, Jai. Nobody speaks that way. She pauses to close her purple-lidded eyes and stands still like she's bathing in a breeze that only she can feel. Then she turns and looks at me and smiles her easy smile, lips painted in a hue named after an opioid and teeth cocaine white. And it makes me boil. Her cool, easily breezing about how she slithers along the spine of another man while standing here breathing on me like this is old business, like she doesn't feel the same electric snaps and pops that made things so complex and agitating when she'd come over and sit on my face from time to time. But all she says to me is, "Too much for you?" My eyes swell in their sockets. I would burn her with fire if I could. Then she says, "You say ostensibly more times in a day than most people will say in their lives, but you got something to say about glands?" Her voice drops to this melodic, baby soothing coo. "Really, nigga?" I hate her. "Fuck you," is all I can manage. Diane stays unruffled, as is generally her way. There are few things that would bow the head of Diane Blue. I've seen her weather the harshest rebukes and most brutal criticisms. Unwilted and unwithered, she stays pretty and arranged, a still life study of poise and decorum, which is a lovely facade because Diane is a whore. This is not slander. She'll admit it herself. You just have to have your dick in her ass and those gorgeous locked tendrils wrapped tightly in your fist first. But if you do, she'll admit it. Fuck, she'll scream it. Outside of that, though, she is a gorgeous, Well-dressed, classy, diplomatic debutante type. The blue blood of Atlanta the blue blood of Atlanta social acculturation runs all up through her. And by her own reports, during her sophomore year, quite a significant cross-section of the Atlanta population did too. I know all of this about her, and she knows my hedonistic man-whore history. And yet we're more in love with each other than two people who are absolute poison to one another should be. So I'd never betray her secrets, save in these paragraphs. And not only has she permitted this, she demands it. Jayan's requirement for us partnering again was that I let her fuss in my kitchen while I go play in her garden. She's going to give up all my recipes. I'm going to pluck her garden bare and expose the weeds. It's a disrespectfully warm fall day in New York. It's hard to call it unseasonably warm when the weather's been this way all season. Late August overstayed her welcome and malingered well into early October. I enjoy brunch with Jayan in my shirt sleeves, but Jayan pretends she is cold. This is primarily an excuse to wear the bright yellow vintage wool peacoat she recently pilfered from her mother's closet. To be honest, I'm surprised it fits her so well. Jayan is built like Atlanta. Her whole frame is all Coke bottle curves and peaches. Jayan's mama is built slim with narrow hips and an impossible tiny waist with the physical bearing of a geisha, but her face is 100% Southern debutante, beat and bad but bougie. Her mama wears too much makeup with an air that seems to suggest that no one else has on enough. And each time I come to visit, she stayed up on her high horse, but she looked like she rode it well. During my older women phase, I'd have fucked the shit out of her. Mercifully, I was past that by the time we were involved. Mostly. Do you remember that night, Jayan begins, when I was packing to leave and you fucked me so beautifully, so brutally? All night you had me so open, remember? We had tickets to see some art horror movie on the artsy theater that you like on Prince Street. You bought me gelato, espresso chocolate chip, and I licked it with deliberateness and intention and made you watch me suck the chocolate nibs out of that creamy, soft mound. Her words are heavy and pollen-filled, and my allergies are starting to act up. She's blissfully ignorant of the effect she's having, or more likely, she's pretending to be. This is a ploy, an obvious effort to diffuse what could easily have become an ugly situation between us. She acts like she's just dancing among the flowers, but she's crushing them under her bare feet and releasing their essential oils, making everything between us potent and fragrant and slippery. And I am furious that it is working so well, outraged that my dick is crawling down my thigh trying to reach her. Remember the way I made you take us home? You had already bought the tickets, but I was so open and so hot. So I teased you. We stood in the theater lobby eating our gelato, and I let that glistening, slick drop of cream cling to my bottom lip, hanging heavy and milky, like it dared you to suck it off. But you've never been one to resist a dare. And when you crushed my lip between yours, I crushed my body against you and gripped the lapels of your jacket and rubbed my head along your neck and shoulders. I was your kitten. I wanted to smell you. I wanted you to smell me. Do you remember? I was wearing my afro then, and it was thick and bushy. You used to grab it in your hand and guide me with it. It's how you taught me submission back when you let me call you daddy. I miss that. I miss my daddy. You took my waist and pulled me outside, and you made me stay there. And then you stepped out into the street right in front of a cab and made it stop. And we got in. You held the door for me, and I climbed in and crawled across the seat on my knees. You said, panties off. And I said, I didn't wear any. And you gripped one half of my ass in your hand, your fingers pulling the cheeks apart to be sure. And you made that groan. That sound that comes from a space between your chest and your belly, and my pussy just opened up inside. And when I got seated, I parted my legs just slightly, but you grabbed my knee under my skirt and jerked them open until my hips were spread for you. I saw the driver looking at us in the rear view, and you caught his eye, fished $100 out of your wallet, and I'll never forget, you said, "Brooklyn, take the Manhattan, eyes front." He took the money, and you stuck what felt like your whole hand inside me and sat there like nothing was happening, plundering me and pulling my petals, making me wild. If Mother had known what I was doing, she'd have killed me. I think literally killed me. She'd have gripped her little perfect manicured hands around my throat and watched my lights go out. And she'd be convinced she was saving me, sacrificing her soul to save mine. I was writhing on that vinyl bench with my thighs open and my mons open and my sex dripping. I couldn't speak, but the breathing was dirty. I breathed dirty for you, Daddy. Do you remember? Do you remember you took off your jacket? Do you remember you put it on your lap? That you reached under and pulled out that hard, fat dick and gave me that look that told me I needed to service you, that look that said, "Come suck Daddy's dick like a good little slut." And I was for you. I crawled to you, and the cab driver started to speak like, "Sir," and you said, "Don't you have $100 and a running meter? Eyes front." And all I could hear was him stammering in protest as I slipped my head under your jacket and slipped your head under my tongue and slurped you like the mound of gelato trying to get to the cocoa nibs. You didn't move the whole time. You sat still and straight the entire however many blocks. I gobbled you. I couldn't understand how calm you could be. How could we be in the sticky, hot, smelly berth of this cab in these dark, dangerous streets being watched with my pussy wide open and ready, and you as still as a sleeping deacon on the front row? I dipped my head low to put you in the back of my throat, which had my ass up so high I could feel the coolness of the window compared to the heat of my sex, and still, you were still. And the cab was like, "Sir, I can see you are," and you said, "Sir, you should be watching the road. You're going to miss your turn." And you patted my ass 2 quick times, and I knew I had to let you go. But you hadn't made a sound, and you hadn't given me my prize. I had to open my throat and let you out. I licked you clean and stuffed you back in your pants and zipped you up. Then I came from under the coat and looked at you. I remember my eyes were running and I felt embarrassed, like I had done something wrong. Everything after that was blurs and colors. I was scared and embarrassed and upset that I hadn't pleased you. I don't remember how we got upstairs, or if you paid the cabbie or anything else. I remember you went to your fridge, poured me some water, and said, "Do you remember what you said?" Diane stops just long enough to take a sip from her cup and break me from the trance I'm in. Memory does not play fair. Some of these moments I tucked in between the pages of books I knew I'd never read over, and she's come and tossed my library, leaving me to recatalog the whole thing, starting with the dirty parts. I can't unremember this now if I tried. I answer with a voice stewing in lust and peppered with indignation and anger. Yes. I said, "Drink every drop, you're going to need it." She leans in at me like this is an interrogation, and I know I done fucked up. And she asks, "And then what did you do, Chrome?" I did what I want to do right now, what you always make me want to do when I'm what I'm meant to do, what we're meant to do. Fuck you. I fucked you. Fuck you. I hate you for this. I dip back into my stew and answer aloud. I fucked you. She parts heroin lips and cocaine teeth to flash a dirty smile at me and lets her tongue bathe in the words as she responds. You fucked the shit out of me. You beast fucked me. You fucked this little pussy like you were mad at it. Then she leans back in her chair, rolls her head back, and says a little too loud for polite conversation, and God, did it feel good. Then she returns to that zephyr of a voice, just above a whisper, to coo at me. Do you know the part that made me come the hardest? But then she doesn't wait on an answer. Mercifully, my throat is dry with rage, and I could have afforded her none. I'll tell you, I came so hard when you were fucking me blind, talking that shit you talk, and you said, I'm gonna make your mama feel this. I'm gonna fuck you so hard she feels it in her guts. And you were grunting and spitting and sweating all hard, and I didn't think you could be fucking me any harder until you were. Jesus, I came. When I closed my eyes and let my mind lean back, I can still feel the way you gripped my hips while you pounded me swollen. I found plum-colored streaks on my waist and my hips and my ass the next day. Did you know that? That you marked me? That you claimed my flesh and left fingerprints all over me? I went home to mother like that. And do you know what she said to me? She said, oh, I'm so glad you're home. I had this feeling like in the pit of my stomach, like a knocking, like how you used to kick me when you were a baby. And I said, oh, she trying to get out. She trying to get out. Oh, she got a trap somewhere. She's stuck. And I couldn't say a word to her. I just looked at her knowing what you had done. You good to your word. I am shifting in my seat. I never knew that part about your mother, but I remember fucking you that way. I used to fuck you like that because I felt the need to write my name inside you, to stamp whose it was on your walls. I just changed tense mid-story. This has gotten involved. I'm not going to edit out my discomfort, embarrassment, or truth. I deal with the raw. You do pretty. Though I know you often tuck brambles and thorns in your pretty bouquets to snag me, catch my flesh, leave me raw. I feel caught among those thorns now, bleeding, but it's just sweat. The heat's become too much for me. There's an old aphorism: if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen, but there is no similar bon mot for that will excuse me from your garden. Diane looks at me and scans my face until she's sure my eyes are locked on hers. Was that one better for you? I look at her, sitting in her coat, cool, while I'm in a shirt sleeves, varnished in perspiration. I will not answer that question. Instead, I borrow a voice from our past relationship and I growl at her. Take off that fucking coat. You're making me hot. She laughs at me, but she takes off the coat. And thus endeth the story. So that was The Heat of Dancing in August. It is not published. It's from an anthology, one that I edited and actually have some contributing pieces in, that who knows if it'll ever see the light of day. But yeah, that was that. Let's check the time. We are at 11:09, which means we are right at the clock, which is pretty much perfect. Let's see. Let me go back and catch the comments and see where we are. There are a lot of comments here. Let's see. Okay, I think we're back to where I came back from the story. So let's see a couple of the lines. Angela Lee Raines picked up on you cannot unhear the softness. Yeah, y'all pulled a lot of lines from this one. So I think I saw some questions about who the author is. So the anthology is set up. The anthology is called Old Friends with Benefits. and it's set up as an exchange of stories. So there's the two contributing authors are Chrome and Jyan, and they're writing back and forth, writing each other's stories. So this story is actually written by Chrome, writing like Jyan. And there's another story in the book called Gasper, where it's written by Jyan, but she's writing like Chrome. And so a lot of these lines that come across as particularly like the stuff that I tried to read in the more female voice, that is him writing her story, and that's her talking to him. It was confusing as shit to edit and confusing as shit to work with. Lust tastes delicious. Does it though? Does it? Sandra pulled out the mannish root. Apparently that lust tastes delicious line that hit a few folk. Ripped out my flower to the root. Now see, I know Angel Monique, I know is she deals a lot with plants and flowers, so I would imagine that a lot of that gardeny sort of language spoke to you. That's one of the key moments in the story where there is a very noticeable break in voice. But yeah, let's see. Binyel loves this woman. That's cool. Issa Marie offering some life advice. Let me see. April Wright liked Built Like Atlanta, all Coke bottle curves and peaches. And yeah. Okay, y'all seem to pick up on quite a bit of the story. Binyel having a little bit more of a reaction than I think the rest of, well, no, okay. Joker also right there in the in that ward with her. And I am officially sick of Issa Marie. Officially done with Issa Marie right now. And Angel Monique is no better. Let's see. I'm trying to catch up. Yes. The writer is male and is the same name as the person that Jyan is talking to. He is writing a story. He is writing a story about them sitting together and her telling him a story that pisses him off. And so when he gets pissed off, she tells him a different story that's about him, just to show him how he's being. And that's what that is. Hold on, let's see. Sandra says, is this a regular thing? I don't understand your question. And is it Sandra or Sandra? I don't understand your question. Are you saying, is this reading erotica a regular thing? If that is your question, I don't know yet. It might be a regular thing. If it becomes a regular thing, it will be at the end of every month. So the last Thursday of every month will be an erotica Thursday, with certain exceptions, because there's some stuff going on in November that will prohibit that. But yeah, it would be Storytime with Julian after dark. Yes, possibly. I'll probably put up a poll in the on the page to see whether or not it's something that we should do on a monthly basis, because it is sacrificing. Okay, that didn't help. Okay, Sandra, not Sandra. I'm thinking about Mary. Anyway, that's it, y'all. This has been Storytime with Julian, or rather Storytime with Julian after dark. Tonight we heard two stories from this classic collection, Erotique Noir. We heard Nasty Delightful Things by Piri Thomas, possibly Piri Thomas, and we heard Touching by Terri McMillan. And then the other story that you heard can't be found anywhere. It is The Heat of Dancing in August by Chrome, written to Jyan Blue for, you know what? You know what? Tauntaun, come on now. Come on. Come on now. Grow up now. I heard it though when I said it. Thank you, Kamisha. And thank all of you for coming out to Storytime with Julian. Our next read will be Tuesday. There may or may not be a pop-up. Who knows? If there is a pop-up, it won't be announced. It'll just be a thing that happens. So make sure that you have liked and followed the page so that you get notifications should that pop-up happen. Also, make your way over to the YouTube channel. Make sure that you subscribe, because this read, for one, won't be on here long. I may depublish it tonight. I may expire it tonight. I may expire it tomorrow, but it's not going to be here even 24 hours. So for those of you who came late and you want to check out the pre-read and all that, make sure that you run that back and check it out. Otherwise, it's not going to be here, but it will be in some form. Some form of it will exist on YouTube. So I'm just saying, it makes sense to subscribe to that channel. Also, check us out on the Twitters. You can find us at Storytime Julian. You can find me personally at Magnet for Awesome on the Twitters. And so you should check that out. You really, really should. This has been Storytime. I appreciate you so very much. And time for the closing credits. Hold on a second. Let me get I got to learn how to get the comments and things off. I'm going to put this up. Please like or share our pages and do all that good stuff. And peace. We're out.